We got a good topic today. I think we want to focus on expectations, which is good. And I think expectations are something that's important when you're talking about relationships or whatever. But kind of give me your breakdown on what you think expectations are.
Well, we all have them. We don't all voice them. Sometimes we don't even know what they are. Some people haven't really thought about what their expectations are. And it might be of expectations about your own life
Yeah.
and how you want to lead your life. You did the eulogy exercise, which can be really eye-opening. So then you can start having expectations around your own life once you start thinking about it at that level.
Yeah.
But when people are together in a relationship, often they haven't thought about their expectations themselves, about what they want to have in a partner. But if they have, often they haven't expressed that directly to their partner. And for a multitude of reasons. I mean, it is hard to start these conversations sometimes. And sometimes it's just, there's not a time and place. So, part of with the Relationship Inc. program that I've been working on is like creating systems around that to help get this kind of information exchanged between couples so that they can use it in a way that maybe they decide early on, if they're at the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah.
They can say, I don't think that we actually are aligned on these things. Maybe it's parenting, maybe it's how you want to retire, maybe it's just the relationship dynamics themselves, the expectations around those. So you can know that information and decide, is this somebody I really want to invest more time and energy and my heart into? Or is it best to move on? So it's good to kind of have that knowledge. And also, if you don't have that knowledge, how you want to be in the relationship, it's really hard to meet somebody's expectations if you don't know what they are.
Yeah. And I can be honest with you, I've never discussed or expressed or listed off any expectations with any relationship I've ever been in because I've never really thought about it, right? I never really thought what my expectations are. So is this something that, did you make a list for yourself, or is this something that you went through a thought process yourself and came up with kind of your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, yes. And in a casual, informal way, I think there's just like, you realize like, oh, okay, well, this person I'm in a relationship with isn't making me happy in these ways or something. And then it's like, well, why is that? Well, there's this need or desire for something that they're not providing. And then it's like, you either tell them what that is, or you just think, no, they're not probably going to be that person that's going to meet that need. And so for me, it was, a lot of the Relationship Inc. is comparing how you run a business or how businesses in general are sustainable and successful. And a lot of it's around communication and systemization of that communication. And setting those expectations is like when you hire somebody into your team or into your company, they have a job description. They know what the expectations are of that role. But when you think about a relationship, people don't really have a job description, right, for their partner, but really they do. They just haven't formalized it. There is some idea in their mind of what they want in a partner in different aspects. Maybe it's, when you talk about family, it's the real dynamics of, physical intimacy, it's children, finances, everyone's different. And so really we do have this kind of job description of a partner, but we just haven't really thought about it or communicated it.
Yeah, my biggest fear when it comes to those type of topics, Celeste, is like, how do I begin that conversation?
Right.
If I bring it up and the other person hasn't voiced any expectations, my thought would be, am I going to sound crazy?
Right.
Or they think I'm being too
forward?
forward?
You probably are going to sound crazy. And so that's why to have the program that I've been working on, that's not done yet, but it's in the works, is that it provides an outlet for somebody to, we want to do this program because we want to have really great communication and we want to be able to have a relationship that we want to get renewed. If you think of it in like a contract that's renewable rather than till death do us part, which many people seem to think marriage means, which isn't what we all know what it means. So to be able to have that information, kind of be able to pull that information out of each other within a program versus like sitting across the table and being like, well, Chad, I've been wondering how your ideas are on finances and how if we were together, how how we would share those. So it is hard. I mean, expectations are hard for people to articulate, and they just kind of need a little help to do that and to share it.
Do you think that would be best in a workshop type setting where you have both individuals and you're discussing these topics to where it's not a taboo subject, but it's something that's brought up in a workshop environment where people are discussing it, and that kind of gets the ball rolling on that conversation?
That's exactly. And it could be online or in person. But it's just like, okay, so this is what we're going to talk about now. So now each of you share your ideas around, so if it was a workshop around like a pre-marriage or relationship, then it could be what's your ideas around, having children? What would be the roles and responsibilities of having those children?
Yes.
How is that going to be split? Just kind of really breaking down the things that people run into in a marriage that start to create friction and discontent with the other person, and really having a clear knowledge going into it of what you're getting into.
Yeah. And I think all the topics you just hit on are ones that, like you said, that can create friction potentially. The finances, how you want to retire, how that looks like, physical intimacy, parenting is a big one.
Yeah, they're all huge.
Yeah, like these are all critical key points.
And so many people don't know this information of even maybe the partner they're with now. Like, does everyone know what their partners, we talked about this with your eulogy, like, how do you want to retire? Where do you want to live? How much money, do we want to have? And how lean of a income are we prepared to have after retirement? These are really important questions, especially as people get closer to retirement. I'm sure they've had them more at that point than they did, in their 20s and 30s.
I would think so, but I know people have been married for, numerous years that have never really approached the type of topics that you're talking about. So even after 15, 20, 25 years of marriage, they're still in the dark together on certain aspects that you're talking about with the expectation.
Right. And there's still so much people can learn about each other no matter how long you've been married. And sometimes it takes vulnerability and transparency to be able to share and to open up, to maybe go a little bit deeper.
Well, the great thing is, it sounds like these are the type of conversations that even if you're already married, you've been married for a number of years, and you talk about the renewal aspect like a contract, these are conversations that you could work into to bring more life or to improve the relationship itself.
I think every relationship's a work in progress, right? And people evolve and change. So like if you had this conversation and you set expectations, or you shared at least your expectations, those are going to change over time. Who you are when you're 20, 30 is very different than when you're in your 40s, 50s, or whatever. But part of that is like setting up those systems for communication so you can continue to exchange this information and really understand your partner. And because how else are you going to meet their needs if they haven't shared them?
That's a great point.
And the same for your needs.
All right. So so parenting is one. Obviously, finances is another big one. Physical intimacy. What are some of the other big topics that require expectations that you think are big in a relationship?
Well, those are definitely, the biggest. I think one thing that is important is the level of freedom when people get into a relationship. So when some people are dating, they might get a feel for that, but people may be a little different when they're dating than when they actually are in a committed long-term relationship or married. And, some people, I know friends who they want to travel and do their thing with friends. Maybe it's an annual guys trip, it's, girls trips, whatever, that they want to have that freedom to do that. And some partners aren't really comfortable with that, right? So if that was important to you, and having those conversations about basically how many hall passes do you get? Like what's a reasonable amount? Because if somebody's used to being single for a lot of their adulthood and then they get married and they're used to doing whatever they want, they might be taken aback for somebody to say, well, I don't really feel that's fair. You only have 3 weeks of vacation. You're going to take half of it with your friends and not with your family or with me. So having that conversation, at least in the beginning, I think is really powerful to establish that. And maybe there's some compromise on both sides.
So really with the expectations then, so all these different topics that you've listed, you have to be able to identify what are the most important things to you when it comes to this, right? Like some of these topics may not be as important to you as they are to me, or vice versa.
Right. And I think just kind of going through, kind of like, a workshop type of process where you just kind of go through, no, this is my answer, but, these are irrelevant these aren't going to be a problem for us. But the things that are a little different, where there's not alignment, to be able to kind of work through those before you get to that point where they become a problem and they haven't been talked about. I think that can really help people get through those kind of humps and hurdles that can add up when you're in a relationship.
All right. So what would be your advice to someone who, like me or somebody else, and I'm sure you have friends like this too, where they know that they need to address some of these important matters that they haven't voiced yet, but they're afraid to do it? How do you encourage someone to break the ice, to have the courage or the transparency to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, once Relationship Inc. has workshops, I'll let you know. But in the meantime, I think having the ability to just share what you yourself want, that can be a start. Like, these are the things I want to accomplish, before I retire. When I retire, this is what I dream about my life to look like. How about you?
Yeah.
And start there. And hopefully, if you're already married, of course, hopefully you have some alignment. I'm sure at that point, people, like I said, later in life, they probably have talked about some of these things.
Yeah.
But really kind of being open enough and really putting the thought in for yourself, because some people haven't really thought about what their expectations are. I had a friend who was married for a long time, and they had decided together to have her stay home with the kids. And I don't know that they decided that before they got married, but they were in agreement of that when they started having children. But what they didn't do is talk more about, like, well, how long would we do that? How long would you stay home with the kids?
Yeah.
So once the kids went off to school, he was kind of thinking it would be great for you to have a job, because then we could continue to elevate our lifestyle. And she wasn't really ready for that or keen on that. And so then it took multiple conversations where she was kind of rejecting that. And I can imagine how terrifying it is to get back into the job market. You make that decision to put your career on hold.
Yeah, and you've been out of the job market for 10 or 15
5,
years
10
or
years.
whatever.
I mean, it is intimidating to get back in there. And he did have empathy for that. But that doesn't mean that there's still not this kind of like push of like, okay, now's the time. Let's do this. Let's get you back to work, because the kids are at school all day. So that really didn't happen, and then of course the marriage ran its course, and then there's a lot of alimony involved at the end, and all these things that he didn't really have control over, because, now would it be different if they had agreed on that beforehand? Maybe not, but he would have a better time, I think, having that conversation if they had already talked about it before it happened.
Yeah.
And she would maybe be in a mindset when she was doing it, like, okay, I'm going to go back to work, so I need to make sure I stay on my LinkedIn, or I do the things so that I am ready to go back.
Well, it sounds like the workshops that you want to put together are important, because my guess is, I don't know how it works with like premarital counseling, but how many of these important topics or expectations are being expressed before people even get married? My guess is not often, right?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, not to this level. And, some minutia, like, people can, if they love each other, they're going to figure out a way.
Yeah.
There are very important ways that people live their life very differently. And money is another one that's huge, that people save and spend very differently. And, especially if you had somebody staying home, and it could be either party, right? I know several women who are the breadwinner and the men have stayed home with the kids. But either way, somebody's staying home, what's their spending allotment, of the budget, without feeling like they're spending your money, and having those conversations about how money spent. How I have friends who do a shared account, and then they have private credit cards. They don't share what they spend. Like, if he wants to spend, $500 on a bottle of wine and $100 on a cigar, and she wants to buy, expensive clothes, and, doesn't matter. You have your money, I have mine, and we pay this much into savings, this much into household expenses. And that works really well for them, where other people are kind of like scrutinizing, you paid what for what? And, like when people have, especially when you've been independent for a while, you didn't just go from your parents', bank account to, your relationship. You've used to like being able to be in control of your own finances. And it's a hard thing to all of a sudden share that.
Yeah, I know, just based on some of the guys I play golf with, some of my friends, that particular topic right there, I've heard come up just by guys talking about, that's a constant friction point that you were talking about, where the wives will be critical of what's spent over here. Right. Husbands are frustrated because the Amazon guy's showing up at the house every day.
And I know how much some rounds of golf cost, Chad. So, I mean, yeah. And then men are like, you paid how much for that handbag? I mean, if it's not important to you, it does not make any sense to see how somebody else spends money.
Yeah.
But who are we to judge if somebody makes money, their own money, and then they, have the buckets filled in the right ways? If that's how they want to spend it, that's their choice. But then again, if you're one income and you're having to spread it out farther because you only have the one income, it does get a little more tricky.
Yeah. That is tough. Are the finances the biggest sticking point for most of the relationships?
Well, what I've read is finances and sex are the big ones.
Finances and
And
sex.
so, yeah, as far as, intimacy, I mean, that's another thing with expectations is, how often,
Yeah.
like, what's to be expected, variety, uh, climaxing. Like
Yeah.
somebody could say, I expect, to do that every time. And somebody else would be maybe not, so.
Yeah, I would say that just on the golf course, the finances and the intimacy, I just hear, just conversations in passing, but those topics come up a lot. So we'll touch on that. I want to talk about intimacy a little bit. We'll come back. Celeste Trapp is in studio. What women want. What I'm wondering is like, can two people who are on opposite ends of the spectrum, like maybe someone's all about words of affirmation, but not into physical touch, and you have someone that's really into physical touch, like, can you take two people that are on opposite ends of that, and can they find a way to make it work together? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, I think so. But now if somebody was like, some people don't really enjoy touch at all.
Yeah.
Like we have clients who don't want a scalp massage, which I find just so hard to believe because it's so amazing.
Like, you want to massage my scalp? Yeah, please.
Yeah. So there's some people, or some people though, it's an intimacy thing too. Like they want only their partner to massage them, not a strange person. So not strange person, but a stranger.
Yeah.
And so I do think though, like with the love languages, there's 5, and not having the same love language is not unusual. The important part of that is just knowing the information.
Yeah, knowing the information and then being able to communicate it.
Right. And because generally what we do is we show love the way we want to receive it. So most likely when people say, I don't know my love language, I suggest like, well, how do you give it? Because that's generally what you also want to receive. And
also how you give affection is often how you want to receive it.
Right. And so knowing that your partner actually wants something different or needs something different is important. And hopefully, if you were with somebody who had acts of service as their love language, but they knew that you needed touch, hopefully that person would care about you and say, I'm going to make an effort, even though my inclination is to do an act of service for you and make you dinner tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to also, make sure I'm holding your hand on the couch or rub your neck or other things.
Yeah.
Right? So hopefully that's the kind of relationship that you want, right? Is that somebody listens to what your needs are and takes action. Because nothing's worse than when I remember telling a boyfriend many, many moons ago that, it'd be nice if I heard a compliment like once a week or two, just something. And even that he couldn't muster up. And I was just like, God, it was kind of like a slap in the face, right? Because I went, and it's hard to tell somebody that. I told him that and he did nothing with it. So it was almost worse than just not saying any nice things to me. So, but I do think that you can find a fit with somebody who doesn't share that same love language.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Yeah, I think acts of service, like I would think my Nana was, I think that was her gift. Like her way of showing that she loved you was by making food, by doing this, doing that. She was always caring for other people.
Yeah.
I think acts of service was
it's
her
a beautiful
strength.
thing. All the love languages are amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know people that they seem to have a knack, an ability to communicate words of affirmation when you need it most. And there are people that are very gifted in that, saying the right thing or giving you a compliment or noticing something that no one else noticed. Like they see you, like that makes a person feel really good.
Yeah. And we were talking about this on break, like just being seen is really important for women and also for men. Like people want to be recognized for the things they do, appreciated, whether it's their looks or it's something they've done for you or accomplishment they've accomplished. So just being recognized in that way is really powerful. We all show affection in different ways, but if somebody does have the need for more physical touch, being able to verbalize, in ways that you want to be touched, if somebody's rubbing, like my son loves to have his arms, massaged and his hands. And so I just teach him to talk to me about how much pressure, how slow, how fast, and just kind of walk him through how to articulate that so that why get a massage from somebody and it's like not what you want.
Yeah.
It's like terrible. It could still feel nice, but it feels so much nicer if you just gave the words around what you were looking
Yeah,
for.
like when I go get a massage, I have no issue saying, "Oh yeah, deep tissue, please. I want this to be productive." So I
Yeah.
express that, you know.
So we offer massage too, and so I'll coach our therapists that always be checking in with the client, because it's really hard for somebody in the middle of the massage to say, "Hey, a little bit deeper, please."
Yeah.
But if they come to you, hopefully, your therapist does this as well, and just say, "How's the pressure?" So that gives you the opportunity to say,
Yeah.
deeper,
It's right on or deeper, whatever.
rather than having to offer that and be critical of their current pressure.
All right, like usual, the time goes by too fast when you're in studio, Celeste. Thanks for coming in.
It's been fun.
It's good to see you. We'll have more with Celeste in the very near future.